G'day, my name is Paul and I'm with Historisk Prepper. Thanks for joining me on this video. Today we're going to discuss when I think the food shortages or famine is going to actually occur in Norway. And this is in response to the question that I was asked by Knut. So Knut, I hope you enjoy this. Now, before we get into it, guys, please subscribe to the channel. There's only 98% of people who are visiting who are not subscribed. So I would like to see that down. I'd like more people to be subscribed because this is practical information. You know, we're not trying to hawk, bug out equipment or anything like that. We're trying to help people to be prepared. So please subscribe to the channel, leave us a like, leave us a comment as well. It really helps. And guys, stay to the end. This is, this is an important video, and all of my tips on how to deal with things practically come at the end of the video. So stay to the end. I promise it'll be worth it. Now, when will the famine come? Well, you have to understand that there are certain factors that normally result in a famine. And factor number one is political and military corruption. Political and military conflict. Now, we're seeing conflict currently in Ukraine and, around the world that's resulting in food shortages all over the place. Sri Lanka being a very good example. Now, point number two is your corruption. Corruption's a major factor. You can't avoid it. The bigger the government gets, the more corrupt it normally gets as well. Point three is economic instability. Most countries are running on fiat currency. So most countries are going to see decreased buying power as, as more is being printed. More money being printed, the less it's worth. So there's no avoiding it. And four, this one has impact on all the other factors, and that's poor governmental policies. So governmental policies, there's no running away from inept government. It will drag a whole country down. So you need to understand, in Norway, we're not set up to last very long. We import nearly 70% of our food. So that means within 3 days, we're going to see food shortages if the supply stops. And within weeks, we're actually going to see famine. So that's pretty sobering when you think about it that way. So what I'd like to do is I'd actually like to reframe the question rather than when I think famine and food or food shortages and famine will happen. I'd rather reframe it and say, how fast can it happen? How fast can these shortages and famine actually happen? Now, let's have a look at the current political situation. Sweden and Finland are looking to join NATO. Now, this is despite warnings from Russia. Now, Norway shares a border with Sweden, Finland and Russia. So if there's any conflict between those nations there, we have no access to any of the goods via land, which leaves us only the goods via sea. And that's providing we can find countries that have enough food surplus that they're willing to sell it to us in the first place. Remember, we're importing 70% of our food in Norway. So you have to understand then that 3 days for shortages, weeks for a famine if that doesn't get resolved. So fertilizer prices have gone up. There's shortages of fertilizer. Now, modern farming methods mean that if you don't fertilize your fields, you have 40% less food production. So let's just run the numbers here. Let's look at it. With a lack of fertilizer, you're talking about 40% less food right off the bat. There's about a 300% price increase in the combined fuel, fertilizer, and the seed stock. So add that to the 40% less food. On top of that, you've got increased transport costs because of the increased diesel price. You cannot subsidize the food with cheap grain from Ukraine and Russia, so that's off the table. You've got limited transport possibilities if there's any conflict between NATO countries and Russia as well. And then on top of that, you have inflation. If we have a weak krona, then we're going to be in some serious trouble. So, there are some things to consider here. So the question is, if this happens, if this perfect storm actually kicks off, are you prepared? Are you prepared? Are you able to feed your family? What contingency plan do you have? Now, what do I think is going to happen specifically? Well, take this with a huge grain of salt, but I think we're going to see a significant price increase before we see food shortages. So I think the prices will increase sharply like we're seeing in Germany at the moment. And I think that this is actually going to happen by the end of summer, start of autumn. The next thing is that Once this starts to happen, this ball starts rolling, these poor policies are going to take years to undo, and they'll only be undone because of massive pressure on government, because we've basically gone into a disaster. So it takes decades to bring a country to its knees like this. It's going to take at least as long for us to recover from this nonsense. So what can you do? It wouldn't be a Nosh Prepper video without some practical advice. So what can you actually do about this? Well, number one, start by storing food away now. Buy your food, buy your storage, start immediately. 2, start with the basics. Your pasta, your rice, your wheat. Get started with the basics immediately. Point number 3, make sure you have enough for 12 months plus some safety margin. You need to last at least 12 months so that you can get through a growing season, so you can at least get a garden in the ground and start producing your own food. Now, point 4, get your garden and your chickens up and running as soon as possible. Even if you're partially self-sufficient, it's better than not having anything at all. Point 5 is learn. Get on the forums, get onto the groups, start learning and asking questions. Don't waste your time with entertainment. Get learning as quick as you can. Point 6, invest in getting your family involved. Teach them, get them gardening, get them started as soon as possible. Point 7, join communities. In person, digitally, it doesn't matter. Start joining communities as fast as you can. And point 8 is start today. Get started immediately. There's no time to waste. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe, leave us a like, leave us a comment. All right, until next time, guys, this is Paul, over and out. See ya.